In the high-stakes arena of global economics, a new and audacious demand has been issued. Donald Trump is pressing China, the world's largest energy importer, to fundamentally alter its energy strategy. The demand is twofold. First, to cease its large-scale purchases of discounted Russian oil, and second, to replace that supply with higher-priced barrels from the United States. This move represents a significant gamble, one that intertwines economic policy with raw geopolitical pressure. It's a direct challenge to the burgeoning energy alliance between Beijing and Moscow, and an attempt to leverage America's own energy abundance for strategic gain. The irony of this position is not lost on observers. This is the same Donald Trump who for years electrified his base with the simple, powerful mantra, "Drill, baby, drill." He championed an era of deregulation, opening up federal lands and offshore territories to exploration, all with the goal of achieving American energy dominance. He urged domestic producers to unleash the full might of the U.S. shale revolution and pump at maximum capacity. The policy was a resounding success in terms of volume. The United States transformed from a major importer into a net exporter of petroleum, a shift that reshaped global energy maps. But as any oilman will tell you, producing historic amounts of crude is only half the battle. The other, arguably more complex half is securing a stable, long-term market for all that oil. The global market is a fiercely competitive space, and with production soaring, the pressure to find buyers has become immense. For the American energy sector, this isn't just about profits, it's about survival. Sustained high production requires consistent demand to prevent a supply glut that could crash prices and bankrupt producers. Washington's challenge, therefore, has shifted from unlocking supply to securing demand. Instead of focusing on cultivating new untapped markets or competing on purely commercial terms, the Trump administration has taken a more confrontational path. It is targeting the single largest energy consumer on the planet, China. The demand is not a gentle suggestion but a stark ultimatum. Abandon your economically advantageous supply of low-cost Russian crude and commit to purchasing more expensive American oil. This strategy bypasses market logic in favor of geopolitical leverage, attempting to force a commercial outcome through political will. Beijing's response was as swift as it was predictable. It was a straightforward, unequivocal refusal. In the carefully chosen language of international diplomacy, Chinese officials communicated that their energy procurement is a matter of national sovereignty and economic prudence. They would not be dictated to on matters of vital national interest. The rejection was not just a defense of their Russian energy ties, it was a clear signal that China would not bow to economic pressure that ran counter to its own strategic and financial logic. While Trump employs this direct, confrontational approach, another arm of his administration is pursuing a different, more subtle strategy. The U.S. Treasury is simultaneously preparing for a massive fiscal operation, raising another $100 billion in the capital markets. This move to fund the government's operations sets the backdrop for a parallel diplomatic track with Beijing, one that employs the language of cooperation to achieve similar goals. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has adopted a more traditionally diplomatic approach. In his communications with his Chinese counterparts, he has framed the U.S. position as a helpful offer. He has told China that the United States wants to help them rebalance their economy. This term, rebalancing, is a long-standing piece of economic diplomacy, suggesting a shift away from an economy driven by state-led investment and exports toward one powered by domestic consumer spending. It's the kind of proposal that sounds constructive and even altruistic on the surface. Who wouldn't want a more balanced, stable economy? But beneath the veneer of helpfulness, the proposal works almost entirely in Washington's favor. A China that consumes more would, in theory, import more American goods and services, helping to close the persistent U.S. trade deficit. A China that manufactures and exports less would mean reduced competition for American industries. It's a strategic play dressed up as friendly advice. This combination of Trump's overt pressure on oil and Bessent's persuasive diplomacy on economic structure creates a good cop, bad cop dynamic. It's a two-pronged assault on China's economic model, shaping one of the most unusual and consequential standoffs in recent memory. The world's two largest economies are locked in a contest of wills, with global energy and trade flows hanging in the balance. From the outset, Washington's push to get Beijing to sever its energy lifeline to Russia was a long shot, destined for failure. The reasons are rooted in a complex mix of economics, logistics, and geopolitics. The energy relationship between China and Russia is not a matter of simple convenience. It is a deep strategic partnership that has been cultivated for years, built on mutual interest and a shared worldview that often stands in opposition to that of the West. For months, U.S. officials from the State Department to the Treasury have been delivering this message to China, both publicly in press conferences and privately behind the closed doors of diplomatic meetings. The warning has been consistent: stop buying Moscow's crude oil. The implication has been that continuing to do so would carry consequences, though those consequences have often been left deliberately vague. Beijing's reply when it came was polite but firm, leaving absolutely no room for interpretation or negotiation. Officials publicly declared that their trade relationships are their own affair, calling the purchases of Russian oil a sovereign choice. In the world of diplomacy, sovereign choice is powerful code. It's a polite but resolute way of saying, this is not your decision to make and we will not be discussing it further. The numbers underscore the depth of this commitment. In the fiscal year 2024, Chinese refiners imported a staggering 108.5 million tons of Russian crude. That translates to roughly 2.17 million barrels every single day. This makes Russia China's single largest supplier, surpassing even Saudi Arabia. This isn't a marginal trade flow, it's a foundational pillar of China's energy security. The primary driver of this relationship is simple economics. Russia's flagship Urals crude blend consistently trades at a significant discount to international benchmarks like Brent crude. This discount, often hovering around $10 per barrel and sometimes widening further due to Western sanctions on Moscow, represents a colossal saving for China. When importing over 2 million barrels a day, a $10 discount translates into savings of over $20 million every day, or more than $7 billion per year. For the world's factory, this is an easy and logical choice. Geography also plays a critical role. Russia is a neighbor. Oil can be delivered relatively quickly and cheaply via pipelines like the Eastern Siberia Pacific Ocean pipeline and by tankers on short sea routes from Russia's Far East ports. This proximity provides a level of energy security that long-haul shipments from the U.S. Gulf Coast or the Middle East cannot match. For energy-hungry nations like China and India, Russia's geographic position makes it a natural energy partner, reducing transit times and vulnerability. Furthermore, there's a crucial technical reason. China's vast refining infrastructure has been optimized over decades to process specific types of crude oil. Many of its most important refineries are configured to handle heavier, sour grades of crude, exactly like Russia's Urals. Switching to lighter, sweeter American grades would not be a simple swap. It would require costly retooling, would lead to lower yields of high-value products like gasoline and diesel, and would ultimately cut deep into refinery profit margins. It's an economically irrational move. As this energy drama played out, the broader trade battle between the United States and China unfolded in a way that few in Washington had anticipated. Despite years of tariffs and political pressure designed to slow it down, the Chinese economic engine continued to fire on all cylinders, defying pessimistic forecasts. In the first quarter of 2025, China's official GDP figures showed a year-on-year expansion of 5.4%. This number not only demonstrated robust health, but also comfortably surpassed the consensus forecasts of international economists. It was a clear sign that the economy had strong underlying momentum. Digging into the details, the strength was concentrated in the country's industrial heartland. Industrial output surged by 6.4%, while the critical manufacturing sector climbed an even more impressive 7.0%. This growth wasn't just in traditional heavy industry, it was being led by new sectors like electric vehicles, solar panels, and batteries, areas where China is establishing global dominance. This industrial might translated directly into staggering trade figures. In the first half of the year, China's global trade surplus reached a record-breaking $686 billion. This was a 34% increase from the already high figure in 2024, indicating that far from being isolated, China was exporting more to the world than ever before. Faced with this reality, an economically resilient China successfully resisting pressure on energy, the U.S. Treasury shifted its focus. Secretary Scott Bessent added a new, even more ambitious request for Beijing: scale back your manufacturing. This was a direct response to China's surging industrial output and exports, which Washington began to label as industrial overcapacity. The scale of what the U.S. was asking is breathtaking. China currently produces close to 30% of all manufactured goods in the world, a share larger than that of the United States, Germany, and Japan combined. Its manufacturing base is the bedrock of its economy and a cornerstone of global supply chains. This dominance is built on an unparalleled industrial ecosystem. Its vast, hyper-efficient industrial zones cluster thousands of suppliers, component makers, and assembly plants in close proximity. This allows companies like Apple or Tesla to source parts and scale production with a speed and efficiency that is virtually impossible to replicate anywhere else in the world. Asking China to voluntarily dismantle this competitive advantage was seen in Beijing as not just unreasonable, but absurd. While making these demands on China, Washington is grappling with its own pressing economic vulnerabilities. The U.S. Treasury is preparing to raise a record $100 billion in a single week through the sale of short-term Treasury bills. This is necessary to fund government operations, social programs, and the ballooning interest payments on the national debt. It's an unusually large injection of new debt into the market in such a short period. To find buyers for this mountain of paper, the Treasury may have to offer more attractive terms, which means higher interest rates. This highlights a core dilemma for the U.S. Its economic strength is increasingly reliant on its ability to borrow cheaply and in massive quantities. Every new auction of this magnitude adds upward pressure on interest rates across the entire economy. It fuels the ongoing debate over the sustainability of America's fiscal path. Higher Treasury yields mean higher costs for mortgages, car loans, and corporate borrowing, potentially acting as a brake on economic growth. The U.S. is essentially borrowing from the future to fund the present, a strategy that becomes riskier as the debt load grows. Against this complex backdrop of economic warfare with China and domestic fiscal pressure, Donald Trump's upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin takes on an entirely new layer of significance. The meeting is no longer just about traditional security issues, it's now viewed through the prism of global energy markets and economic alliances. With its China strategy yielding little success and its own economy facing the strain of rising debt, the White House is under immense pressure to find new ways to stabilize the situation and project strength. Could a deal with Putin on oil production or prices be on the table? Could they find common ground in checking China's economic power? The stakes of this meeting are now higher than ever. The intricate dance of global power is entering a new, unpredictable phase where the lines between friend and foe are constantly shifting. The global economic order is being rewritten in real time. The confrontation between the US and China over oil, manufacturing, and debt is not just a headline, it's a fundamental stress test of the world's financial and political systems. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on. Our next update will delve into the potential outcomes of the Trump-Putin summit and what it means for your financial future. This is a story you cannot afford to miss.